By the way, the coworker who reported me for sick leave fraud, the one who got me investigated because I stepped into my son's 5th grade graduation for 5 minutes while I was so sick I could barely stand, she is the one who ended up packing up her classroom at the end of it. Not me, her. And I found that out in the same quiet little meeting where the district told me the case against me was closed and that they were sorry for, and I'm quoting the man, any distress the process may have caused. Any distress the process may have caused. I will get to him. My name is Marin, 37F, and 3 months ago, I was so scared of losing the job that feeds my 2 kids that I stopped sleeping. I want to back all the way up, because the part where it turns out okay does not mean anything unless you understand how close I came to losing everything, and why. I have taught 7th grade in the same district for 15 years. 15 years. I tell people that, and they nod like it is a normal number, but think about what 15 years of anything actually is. I have taught the children of students I taught. I have been there longer than 3 of my principals. And in those 15 years, here is the thing I was always proudest of. The thing I now understand was also the trap. I was the reliable one. You know the reliable one. Every building has one. I was the teacher who never called out. I was the one who covered other people's classes during my own planning period when they needed to slip away, no questions asked. I was the one who said yes to the committee, yes to the after-school tutoring, yes to chaperoning the dance that nobody else wanted to chaperone. I came in with a fever more times than I can count, because who would cover my room? Because the sub situation was a nightmare. Because I had built my whole sense of myself around being the person who shows up no matter what. In 15 years, I had a bank of sick days so large that the office used to joke about it. Marin never gets sick, they would say. Marin is a machine. I was not a machine. I was just a person who had never once let myself need anything. And there is a difference, and I learned it the hard way this year. Because this year, everything changed. This was the year my husband decided he was done. I am not going to get into all of it. It is not the point of the story. And there was nothing dramatic, no big betrayal. He just packed up one weekend and decided the life we built was not the one he wanted. And suddenly, I was a single mother of 2 with a full-time job and no one, and I mean no one, to help. My son Theo, 11M, was finishing 5th grade. My sweet anxious boy who still wanted me to walk him in some mornings. My daughter, B14F, was starting high school and pretending she did not need me, which is its own kind of needing me. And it was just us. No partner. My parents are gone. His parents made themselves scarce the second he left. It was me, getting 2 kids to 2 different schools, and myself to a 3rd, every single morning, and me picking them up, and me making dinner, and me doing the bedtime, and the homework, and the lunches, and the laundry, and the falling apart quietly in the bathroom after they were asleep, so they would not hear it. Survival mode. If you have ever lived in it, you do not need me to explain it. And if you have not, I am not sure I can. It is when your whole life shrinks down to just getting through the next hour, and there is no room left over for things like taking care of yourself, or thinking ahead, or having a plan B, because plan A is barely holding. Our district gives teachers 12 sick days a year and 3 personal days. By the spring, I had used all 3 personal days, every one of them, for my kids. A doctor appointment for B. A morning when Theo was too anxious to walk in alone and I had to sit with him. The day the custody paperwork had to be signed in person during business hours, because of course it did. And I had used 6 of my sick days, also for my kids. Because when you are the only parent and one of them spikes a fever at 2 in the morning, there is no one to tap in. You are the whole bench. I want you to sit with that. 12 sick days and 3 personal days sounds like a lot until you are the only adult holding up an entire family. And then, it is nothing. It is a thimble trying to hold an ocean. Now here is where it happened. Here is the day. Theo had his 5th grade graduation. It was at his elementary school, a different building across the district from where I teach. It was a Tuesday morning. And it mattered to him so much, you have no idea. This was his big day, the cap and the little certificate and his name read out loud, and he had asked me about 100 times, "Mom, you're going to be there, right?" And I had said, "Yes, baby, of course." Because what else do you say to your 11-year-old who has watched his family come apart this year? Of course I will be there. I was out of personal days, so I was going to take a sick day for the morning, and I had finally scheduled an appointment with a specialist I had been needing to see for months. The kind of appointment you put off when you are in survival mode, because taking care of yourself feels like a luxury you cannot afford. The plan was the graduation, then the appointment, then home. A real medical day. I want to be clear about that because it matters later. The appointment was real, and I needed it. And then the morning came, and I woke up violently, genuinely sick. Months of running on empty and neglecting myself had finally caught up with me, and I was not surprised. Honestly, my body had been sending me the bill for a while, and it had come due. I could barely stand. The room was spinning. But you do not get to call out of being a mom. There is no sub for that. So I got my kids up, and I got them dressed, and I drove B to the high school and Theo to his elementary school, white-knuckling the wheel and breathing through it. And when I dropped Theo off, his graduation was right then, and he looked at me with those eyes, and I went in. I went into that gym for 5 minutes. I watched my baby walk across and get his certificate, and I took one picture. One. And the second it was done, I had to leave, because I thought I was going to be sick right there on the bleachers. I drove myself home, and I crashed into my bed, and I did not get up for hours. I was too sick to go to the specialist appointment, the one I actually needed. I canceled it. I lay in bed shaking, and the next morning I was not any better, so I did a telehealth visit, and a doctor looked at me over a screen and put me on medication and told me I needed rest I was never going to get, and wrote me a note. I took that second day as a sick day, too. And both of those days, sick as I was, I still drove my kids to school and picked them up. Because, say it with me, you do not get to call out of being a mom. That was Wednesday. On Sunday, my district sent me an email. I will never forget reading it. It was Sunday afternoon. I was folding laundry. The kids were watching something, and the email said that I was being investigated for sick leave fraud and misuse of leave. It said I had been reported. It said I had been observed at a graduation ceremony and observed transporting my children during a period of claimed illness. It said an investigatory meeting would be scheduled. The laundry was still in my hands. I remember that. Here's the part that turned my blood cold. The year before, a teacher in our district had been fired, actually fired, for going to Disney World after calling in sick. It had been the big scandal, the cautionary tale, the thing administrators brought up in meetings. And now here I was, having stepped into my own son's graduation for 5 minutes while throwing up sick. And I just knew, that someone was going to try to make me into the next Disney teacher. That they were going to take the worst possible read of the most desperate week of my life and hang me with it. And the question that kept me up, the one that ate at me worst of all, was who? Who reported me? Because somebody had. Somebody had seen me at that graduation, or seen me dropping off my kids, and instead of thinking that poor woman, she looks awful, instead of asking if I was okay, they had picked up a phone or written an email and turned me in. Somebody I worked with. Somebody who knew me. It did not take me long to figure out who. Her name is Lorraine 51F, and she taught 2 doors down from me, and I had covered her classes more times than I could count. Lorraine was the kind of colleague who knew everyone's business, who kept a running tally in her head of who came in late and who left early and who took which days, a sort of self-appointed auditor of everyone but herself. Lorraine had never liked me, and I had spent 15 years being warm to her anyway, covering for her anyway, because that was who I was, the reliable one, the one who gives. I found out it was her the way you always find these things out, which is that she could not help telling someone, who told me. And I want to tell you how much I had given that woman specifically, because it is the part that still makes my chest tight. 2 years before, Lorraine had a stretch where she kept needing to leave at lunch. Personal reasons, she said, and I never asked, because that is not who I was. And I covered her afternoon classes on my own planning period for almost 3 weeks straight. 3 weeks of me eating a granola bar, standing up, while I watched 2 rooms instead of 1, grading my own papers at midnight, because I had given my prep time away to her. I did it gladly. I brought her soup once when she said she was run down. When her mother passed, I organized the card and the flowers from the department, and I drove to the service. 15 years of that, and a specific 2 years of going out of my way for her in particular, and the thanks I got was her picking up a phone the one time I needed 5 minutes of grace. Lorraine reported me. The woman whose class I had covered so she could leave early at least a dozen times that very year, the woman I had brought soup to, reported me for stepping into my son's graduation. That was my breaking point. Not the email even, the fact that it was her. The fact that I had given and given and given for 15 years, and the thanks I got was a woman 2 doors down deciding to end my career over 5 minutes in a gymnasium. And here is where, for the first time in my life, I stopped just absorbing it. Because I will tell you what the old me would have done. The old me, the reliable one, the machine, would have shown up to that meeting alone, apologized, cried, explained, begged, and thrown myself on their mercy. Because the old me believed that if I was just good enough and sorry enough, people would be fair to me. 15 years of believing that. And it had gotten me reported by Lorraine. The new me, the one this terrible year had been forging without my permission, did something different. The new me got quiet and got smart and called the union. Our union rep was a man named Dale 61M, a retired from the classroom history teacher who did union work full-time now, and Dale had seen everything. I called him Sunday night, shaking, and I told him the whole thing in one long terrified run-on sentence, and when I finally stopped, Dale was quiet for a second, and then he said, in this calm, gravelly voice, "Marin, can I ask you a few questions?" And I said yes. And he said, "Did you drive your kids to school both of those sick days?" And I said yes. And he said, "Good, because people who are faking sick to go on vacation do not do their school drop-off first. The district just handed you proof that you were home doing the most ordinary, exhausting thing in the world." And he said, "Do you have the telehealth note?" "Yes, and the canceled specialist appointment. Can you get a record of that?" "Yes." And he said, "Then, sweetheart, listen to me. You did not commit fraud. You were sick, and you are a mother, and you went to your son's graduation for 5 minutes. Those are not the same as Disney World, and we are going to make very sure everyone in that room understands the difference." And then Dale said the thing that changed how I walked into that building. He said, "You have spent 15 years being so afraid of being a burden that you forgot you have rights. You do not have to be sorry in there. You just have to be true. You do not have to be sorry. You just have to be true." I wrote that on the back of an envelope, and I kept it in my purse. So we got ready. And getting ready meant, mostly, gathering the truth, because the truth was completely on my side, and I had just been too panicked to see it. I pulled my attendance record, 15 years of it, nearly spotless. The record of a woman who had dragged herself in with fevers for a decade and a half. I got the telehealth documentation. I got the record of the canceled specialist appointment, the one I had actually needed and been too sick to attend, which, if you think about it, is the opposite of fraud. That is a woman who was so genuinely ill, she could not even keep the real medical appointment she had made. I had the timeline. 5 minutes at a graduation. Home for hours. Kids to school and back. The whole desperate, ordinary shape of it. And Dale told me one more thing, and this is where it gets good. Dale said, "By the way, since they want to talk about who is misusing leave, the union has a right to make sure the district is applying its standards evenly." Dale had been doing this a long time. Dale knew exactly how to ask a certain kind of question. The investigatory meeting was on a Thursday after school. In the room was Principal Reyes, 49F, my principal, who I will say more about in a minute, and a district employee relations official named Doyle 55M, who was running the investigation, and me and Dale beside me. Let me tell you about Doyle. Doyle was the kind of man who had clearly decided how the meeting was going to go before anyone sat down. He had a folder, and he had that flat, pleasant voice that bureaucrats use when they think they are about to win, and he started by thanking me for coming and reminding me that the district takes sick leave fraud very seriously, and that there had been a similar matter last year that resulted in termination, which was him waving the Disney teacher at me like a flag, letting me know what was on the table. He wanted me scared. 2 weeks earlier, it would have worked. Doyle laid out the case. I had claimed illness. I had been observed at a graduation. I had been observed transporting children. Therefore, he suggested, with a little sympathetic head tilt that I wanted to throw a chair at, perhaps I had not really been sick at all. And then, it was Dale's turn, and Dale was magnificent, and he never once raised his voice. Dale slid the telehealth note across the table. He slid the 15-year attendance record across the table. He slid the documentation of the canceled specialist appointment across the table. And he said, very calmly, "Mr. Doyle, my member was so ill that she canceled a medical appointment she had been waiting months for. She has a physician's documentation. She has a 15-year record without a single prior issue. And the conduct you are describing, driving her own children to school and stepping into a graduation for 5 minutes, is not evidence of fraud. It is evidence of a single mother who is extremely sick and still met her obligations to her children." Then, Dale looked at him and said, "Unless the district's position is that a sick teacher is required to leave her elementary-age children unattended, in which case I would love to see that policy in writing." The room went quiet. Doyle did not have a policy in writing. There is no such policy. Of course there is not. And then Dale did the thing. He said, "Since we are reviewing whether leave is being used appropriately, the association would like the district to confirm it is reviewing all comparable cases, not just the one that was reported by a colleague." And he let that sit. And he said, because we would not want a situation where one employee is being investigated based on a report from another employee whose own leave usage has not been examined to the same standard. I watched Doyle's face change, and I watched Principal Reyes, who had been quiet the whole time, look down at her hand. Here's what I did not know going in, what came out over the following weeks, the thing that turned my disaster into Lorraine's. Lorraine, the self-appointed auditor of everyone else's attendance, the woman who reported me, had a leave record that was, let us say, very interesting. Lorraine had a pattern of single sick days that fell on Fridays and Mondays with a frequency that no actual illness has ever followed. There were photos, because there are always photos, of Lorraine doing distinctly non-sick things on some of those days. The woman who turned me in for 5 minutes at a graduation had, it turned out, been treating her sick leave like a personal long weekend bank for years. And the only reason no one had ever looked closely was that she was so busy pointing at everyone else. When the union asked the district to apply its standards evenly, the district had to actually look. And when they looked, they did not find a fraud. They found me, a sick mother with 15 clean years, and a doctor's note. And then they kept looking, because they had to, and 2 doors down they found Lorraine. The case against me was closed within a few weeks. I got a letter, no finding of wrongdoing. And then, separately, the quieter machinery started turning on Lorraine, and by the end of the school year, she was gone. Officially, she resigned. Everyone knew what that meant. The woman who tried to end my career over 5 minutes in a gymnasium cleaned out her own classroom instead, and I did not have to lift a finger to make it happen. I just had to stop being too afraid to tell the truth, and let the truth do what the truth does. Now I promised you I would come back to Doyle and to Principal Reyes, because the aftermath is where the real satisfaction lives. Doyle, the man who waved a firing at a sick, single mother and tried to make me the next cautionary tale, was the one who had to sit across from me at the closing meeting and say the district was sorry for any distress the process may have caused. He could not even say, I am sorry. He had to make it a process, a passive thing that just sort of happened, like weather. I looked at him and I did not yell, because Dale taught me that the calm is the win, and I said, Miss Doyle, the distress was caused by a person, not a process. And I hope the next time someone reports a colleague, the district asks why, before it asks who it can make an example of. And he had nothing to say to that. He just closed his folder. Doyle did try one more thing, because men like Doyle do not like to lose cleanly. A couple of weeks after the case closed, word came down that he wanted to schedule a follow-up conversation about my leave usage going forward, a sort of polite way of keeping a foot in the door, of reminding me he was still watching. The old me would have agreed, would have shown up, would have spent another night not sleeping. Instead, I forwarded it to Dale, and Dale made one phone call, and the follow-up conversation evaporated the way Doyle's whole case had evaporated. Because there was nothing under it. There had never been anything under it. Just a man who wanted a number to fix, and had picked the wrong woman. I never heard from Doyle again. I hear he is very enthusiastic about somebody else's paperwork now. Principal Reyes was a different story, and I want to be fair to her, because she earned it. Reyes had been put in a bad spot. A report comes in, the district takes over. Her hands were tied during the investigation. But after it closed, she came to my classroom, after the kids were gone, and she sat down in one of the little 7th grade desks, which principals never do, and she said, Marin, you have given this school 15 years, and you covered for half the people in this building, including the one who reported you, and we let you walk into that meeting scared. I should have made more noise. I am sorry. And she meant it. And I told her the truth, which was that I appreciated it, and that what I needed from her going forward was not an apology. It was for her to remember this the next time the reliable one in her building was running on empty. And she said she would. And here's the thing that surprised me most. The validators came out of the woodwork. Once it got around what had happened, teacher after teacher came to me, quietly, in the hall, in the parking lot, in the workroom, and told me their own Lorraine stories. It turned out Lorraine had reported half the building over the years. Little anonymous tips, little comments to administration, and people had just lived in low-grade fear of her the whole time. My friend Janelle, 40F, who teaches science across the hall, and who is the one who held me together that whole spring, told me that 3 different teachers cried when they heard Lorraine was leaving, out of relief. I had thought I was the only one. I was not the only one. I was just the one who finally, with Dale beside me, did not roll over. Lorraine, for her part, tried to come back, because people like Lorraine always do. She sent me a long message after she resigned, all about how she had only been following district policy by reporting what she observed, and how she hoped there were no hard feelings. and how this had all been a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. 15 years of me covering her classes, and she reports me, gets caught being a fraud herself, and writes to tell me she hopes there are no hard feelings. I read it twice to make sure I had really read it, and then I did not respond, because silence is its own complete sentence, and because Dale taught me, you do not have to be sorry, and I was all out of sorry for Lorraine. So, how bad was my situation? Which is the question I was so afraid to ask 3 months ago. The answer turned out to be not bad at all once I stopped being too afraid to fight. But I want to tell you what I actually learned, because the trophy here is not that Lorraine left. The trophy is what changed in me. I spent 15 years being the reliable one, the machine, the woman who never needed anything, who covered everyone, who came in with fevers, who said yes to everything. Because I thought that was what made me safe. I thought if I gave enough, no one could ever come for me. And then the worst year of my life hit, and I finally needed something. A little grace, a little understanding. 5 minutes at my son's graduation, and the building I had given everything to try to fire me for it. Here's what I know now. You do not keep yourself safe by setting yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm. All those years of never taking a day, of dragging myself in sick, of covering for Lorraine, none of it bought me an ounce of mercy when I needed it. The grace I was looking for did not come from being a machine. It came from finally standing up with the truth and one good union rep and refusing to apologize for being a mother and being human. I still teach 7th grade. But I am not the machine anymore. When I am sick now, I stay home, and I do not feel guilty about it, because a sick teacher helps no one. When somebody asks me to cover their class on my one planning period of the day, I say no a lot more than I used to. And the building did not collapse, imagine that. And when my kids have a graduation, or a game, or a bad morning, I am there, fully there, and I do not apologize to anyone for it. Because being there for Theo and Bea is the entire reason I get up at all. I was so scared of being a burden that I forgot I was a person. It took the worst week of my life and a woman 2 doors down to remind me. I am grateful, in a strange way, not to Lorraine, but to the version of me that finally, after 15 years, picked up the phone and said, I need help. That woman saved us. I am going to be a lot kinder to her from now on. Update 1. A few weeks later. A lot of people asked about my kids, so Theo does not know any of this happened, and he never will, as far as I am concerned. What he knows is that his mom was at his graduation, and that there is one picture of him in his little cap, blurry because I took it with shaking hands, that is now framed on our wall. It is the best photo I own. Bea, my 14-year-old, somehow figured out that something at work had been wrong, the way teenagers always know more than you think, and one night she said, "Are we okay, Mom?" And I said, "Yes, baby, we really are." And for the first time in a year, I was not lying when I said it. Update 2, about a month on. The district, quietly, has started reviewing how it handles anonymous reports against employees, which Dale tells me is because of my case, although no one will ever say so on paper. Apparently, a number of teachers came forward about the pattern, and somebody upstairs decided that maybe a system where one bitter person can launch an investigation that nearly ends a 15-year career is not a great system. I will believe the reform when I see it, but I will say this. I am proud that the worst week of my life might make the next single mom's week a little less terrifying. Update 3. The last one. End of the year. Principal Reyes kept her word. On the last teacher workday of the year, she handed out the staff schedules for next fall, and beside my name, for the first time in 15 years. My planning period was protected, with a little note that said, in her handwriting, "This one is yours. Take it." Such a small thing. I sat in my empty classroom, and I cried over it, the good kind. 15 years I gave that period away to everyone who asked. Next year it is mine. I think I am finally going to spend it the way a person should, which is on a cup of coffee that is still hot when I drink it, and on the radical idea that I am allowed to take care of myself too. Turns out that was never fraud either.